One other thing that we'll point out before we move on to walking you through the agenda is to ask you to take a look in the left-hand portion of your conference packet to the last document on the left-hand side, which is entitled Lessons Learned from 10 Years of Work. We're not going to be officially going over this report during the conference, but we think that this is a very important document that we put together that kind of outlines the growth of our coalition, what we've learned in terms of organizing and strategizing and moving forward over the last decade, and how we see ourselves moving forward from here on out so that there won't have to be a 20th annual conference of the U.S. campaign, because we will have successfully accomplished our mission to change U.S. policy towards Palestine and Israel to support human rights, international law, and equality. So please do read the document. It will really make great and inspiring reading for you on your plane trip home, or your bus ride home, or your train ride home, or however you got here. Just don't read it while you're driving. If you're driving, that's no good. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Felicia, and she's going to walk us through the agenda before we go into our first conference session.
But before I do that, I also wanted to make sure that you see our vendors around the perimeters of the walls here. We have booksellers, we have some of our member groups who are giving out literature. We have interlinked books over here in the corner where some of our authors like Phyllis Bennis and others are selling their books. So please, if you have time during the breaks, please take a look at what folks are doing over here and maybe buy some things. All right, so if you take out your agenda. So we are at the 9 a.m., 9:45 portion, which is the welcome. Next after that, we'll go into member group report backs, and that will be facilitated by myself and Rana Libna. Then we'll have a break from 10:45 to 11. And then the plenary, which will be back in this room, will be here, and that's with Anna. And to that. We also have some other great panelists here, too, with this. And then from 1 p.m. to 2:15, we have lunch and the Grassroots Training Institute. Lunch will be in the room where you can grab lunch, in the room where you grabbed breakfast, and then you can take your lunch to where the Grassroots Training Institute is. Or you can choose to network if you want to. And then also, concurrently, that will consist of the lobby day training. In the Heritage Room, we'll have the student organizing meeting with Omar Barghouti. And we ask that this meeting be only for students. We really want to get students involved in this, and so we ask that the adults and those who are not active students not participate in this, please. And also in the next room, in the plenary room, which is here, we'll be talking about FBI raids on supporters of Palestinian rights, and that will be with Nancy Murray from the Boston Coalition for Palestinian Rights. Then at 2:15, we will come back for steering committee nominations. As Josh says, the forms will be at the registration. And so you can get that and start your campaigning for the steering committee. At 2:15, we'll have our plenary, Challenging U.S. Policy, Strategies to End U.S. Support for Israeli Occupation and Apartheid, with Jennifer Bing from American Friends Service, Cindy Corey from the Rachel Corey Foundation, Allie McCracken from Code Pink, and Peter Miller for Americans United for Palestinian Human Rights.
And a couple more.
and Phyllis Billis, and Martha Reese, Committee for Just Peace in Israel, and Phyllis Billis for the Institute for Policy Studies and the U.S. Campaign. 4:15 to 4:30, we'll have a coffee break. And then from 4:30 to 5:30, we'll have the U.S. campaign presentation of our annual report, and that will be facilitated by myself and my co-chair, David Wildman. And from 5:30 to 6 p.m., we'll have steering committee introductions and ballots. And we're asking that those of you who are running for the steering committee, when you're making your presentations, you take only 2 minutes each. From 6:15 to 8 p.m., we'll have dinner. And then from 8:30 to 10:30 is the benefit concert with Simone Shaheen at All Souls Church.
Can I add in a few things?
Sure.
Just a few more details to add into what Felicia said. You'll notice that in this introductory session, it says that we'll be doing a video launch. Actually, the video came out so great that we decided to defer the video until tonight for the concert, where we're going to have a bigger audience to show the video to. So stay tuned for that. And after we're done with the reviewing of the agenda, we'll also be electing an elections committee that will administer the steering committee election. We'll say more about the goals and the flow of the 2 plenary sessions on BDS and on challenging U.S. policy when we get to those. Just to highlight, how many people are planning to stay on Monday to lobby on Capitol Hill? Okay, so please be sure to come to the lobby day training that we're doing during the lunch break in conference room 1 for that, where we can give you the materials you'll need for that. And also, if people want to start heading out to the benefit concert before 8 o'clock, there's no reason why you need to stick around here until 8 o'clock. Once you have your dinner, you can feel free to start making your way over to the concert venue, especially if you're going to walk, because it's a decent half-hour walk, I'd say, from here. I think that's all to add for Saturday.
I think so.
Yeah.
Great.
Sunday?
Sunday.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. On the mechanics for the steering committee election, we have to run a pretty tight ship since we're doing the whole election process this weekend. So as Felicia mentioned, we have forms to fill out. If you'd like to run for the steering committee, feel free to ask Felicia, myself. Can steering committee members raise their hands? So we have Jim and Peter and Phyllis, and David Wildman is also floating around somewhere. If you have questions about what it entails to be on the steering committee, feel free to ask one of them. Feel free to ask staff. We can talk to you about the duties and responsibilities and what's involved. But the forms are out there right now for you to fill out. If you're considering running for our steering committee, and we have 4 vacancies coming up to be elected this weekend, if you are thinking about it, please do fill out the form sooner rather than later, because we have to prepare the ballot, get it all printed out by 5:30. So if you can get it in before the 2:15 deadline, we'd very much appreciate that.
Wonderful. Now for Sunday, we'll start as we did this morning with breakfast at 8 a.m. And then at 9 a.m. we'll start with our all steering committee ballots are due. So any of you that are running for the steering committee, you need to get your ballots to us by 9 a.m. sharp on Sunday.
Those are the voting ballots.
Oh,
that's everyone's voting ballots.
Those are everyone's voting ballots. So everyone that's voting for a steering committee member needs to get their ballots in by 9 o'clock.
And sorry to interrupt. I forgot to mention also that we'll be passing out, along with the ballots for the steering committee later this afternoon, your voting cards to vote on proposals on Sunday, for those of you representing member groups of the U.S. campaign in good standing.
And then from 9 to 10, there will be the member group endorsement proposals. And that will be facilitated by myself, Bill Fletcher, who's also a steering committee member, and David Wildman. From 10 to 11, there will be the Grassroots Training Institute member group workshops, and these will be concurrent meetings. In Conference Room 1, you have the legal and popular approaches to challenge Zionist organizations in the United States with Kristen Zerminski, who's with American Muslims for Palestine, and Sarah Kirshner, who's with the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network. In Conference Room 2, you have defining violence and nonviolence. What does this mean for Palestine? Presented by Maggie Goff with Westpac. In the Heritage Room, Building BDS Globally, presented by Sasha Gelsen and Joe Catron with the U.S. Campaign for Academic and Cultural Boycott. And in the Plenary Room, Responding to Water Apartheid in Gaza, The Time Is Now, presented by Ziad Abbas and Lena Al-Arian with the Middle East Children's Alliance. And then we'll take a break at 11 to 11:15. And then the second group of grassroots training will start at 11:15 and go to 12:15. And Conference Room 1, you have Exposing AIPAC, delving into the nitty-gritty of how the Israel lobby works, presented by Allison Weir, Council of the National Interest. The Heritage Room, Social Media for Palestine Activists, When Retweet is Not an Option, presented by Abraham Greenhouse, the Palestine Freedom Project. Plenary Room, TIAA CREF, Bringing BDS to Your Local Community, presented by Sidney Levy, Jewish Voices for Peace. And then from 12:15 to 1:30 is lunch. And again, we have our third concurrent sessions of grassroots training or networking. And in Conference Room 1, that will be Global March to Jerusalem, presented by Scott Kennedy, Resource Center for Nonviolence, Firuz. I can't pronounce his name, sorry. Global March to Jerusalem, and Paul LaRuti, Global March to Jerusalem, North America. The Heritage Room, Campus Organizing, You Don't Have to Be a Student to Get Started, presented by Michael Rabb, CU Divest. In the Plenary Room, Derail and Dump Veolia, presented by Dalit Baum of Global Exchange. And from 1:30 to 2 p.m., we'll have our closing and election results, and that will be facilitated by myself and David Wildman. And then from 2 to 2:30, we'll have our new steering committee members who are elected. We usually have a meeting of the old or the existing steering committee members with the new steering committee members, just to get them orientated briefly. So that will be from 2 to 2 p.m. And then Monday, September 19th, is Lobby Day, where those of you who are going on Capitol Hill will be able to meet with your members of Congress. And that's all day starting what time?
Whenever you made your appointments.
Okay.